What's up, William Brower here? It's December 27th. I hope y'all have had a great Christmas, a great holidays, and I'd love to take a few minutes. Actually, I think this is going to take longer than a few minutes. I'd like to take a little bit of time and discuss why I think that the SpaceX flights and the history of SpaceX, their failures, their successes, and the things that stem from those, why those lead me to flat Earth. Um, so, very simply, excuse me, I apologize for that. Been feeling a little under the weather. SpaceX is a privately owned company. They're following the footsteps of our beloved space program that went to the moon. Yeah, this is 50 years later. Our beloved NASA was able to take manned and unmanned payloads into space with very little failures. There were failures, but there were never. We never lost any astronaut in space. We lost them on launch and landings. Granted, those are the most dangerous times. So, what is it about SpaceX that makes me hesitant? That makes me say, this just doesn't sound right. So here we're watching, this is a SpaceX flight. This is actually the launch of the DSCOVR. And this is a perfect point. I'm going to come back to that later. We're only, if you see, 2 minutes out of 4 minutes, we're nearly halfway through this launch video. So let's go to some of the things that just do not make sense to me. And there's a whole bunch of parts, okay? I've got a bunch of tabs here. There's a whole bunch of things that just do not add up. So let's go back to the history of SpaceX, right? So originally NASA was publicly not publicly, NASA was done by our nation or our government. Anything done by NASA is owned by the public. So anything that you find of NASA videos, NASA pictures, NASA whatever, hey, look, it's public use. Why? Because you paid for it. So why did NASA stop going to space? Why did NASA stop the space program? And why are we continuing it through private ventures? Well, I believe, first off, it's so that it can't be questioned as easily. If it was NASA, then NASA could come under the scrutiny of this whole debate, and we could say, prove it, show us the fiscals, show us what you spent the money on. There's a lot of things that go unnamed or unquestioned because it's NASA. Hey, we're throwing how many billions and trillions of dollars into NASA. Okay, well, NASA should be able to give us the easiest proof of a round Earth. And I'm not talking about just a seemingly CGI of an Earth spinning. I'm talking about an astronaut with a video camera, and he points and he shows the International Space Station, and he turns and you get to see the sun, and it turns and you get to see the moon, and he turns and you get to see the Earth. Hey, look, it's an actual system out there, with an actual video camera or some kind of recording device where they're turning around. But from everything that I've seen and from what I've heard, there was someone who did research and they were never even able to find a video of an astronaut doing a 180-degree turn to see what was behind them in space. Out of all of the videotaped spacewalks and all of the footage that we have, how is the proof of this not being the shape of the Earth? How is that not existent? That would be the easiest thing to show, but it does not exist at all. So SpaceX guys, SpaceX has they've let me go down here. I thought there was a list of missions. Well, here's a list of Falcon 1 launches. This was their first Falcon launch. As you see, failure, failure, failure. Oh, look, success, success. 2009. These are unmanned. Now, SpaceX, they went into a partnership with the International Space Station with NASA in what's called the cargo something or other. It's a agreement where SpaceX is going to fly up the cargo to the International Space Station through unmanned flight and resupply the International Space Station. Great. So they had some problems with unmanned flight. They even lost a launch. It supposedly had a strut failure or something in June of 2015. Okay. So yes, I can understand that there would be problems intermittently with spacecraft being launched in a low Earth orbit. Granted, I'm there with you. But what about SpaceX's inability to launch manned spacecraft? They can send rockets into space from when? They could send rockets into space since 2008. But yet they have not been able to get manned privately launched spacecraft by 2015. So 7 years later, we couldn't do it. Look at the amount of technology that we have. Look at the amount of knowledge that we have from the space race where they have done this before, supposedly, with 50-year-older technology. And yet SpaceX, with the money and the budget today, cannot do it. They say that they've run into these, what is it called? Role inversions or something like that. These role inversions that don't let them achieve orbit or leave orbit. Well, okay. How did our first space program get past that? Okay, if unmanned rockets, which granted are going to be a little bit different shape, but if those are able to use autopilot technology, computer technology, trajectory information to achieve orbit, then why could our manned flights not do that? How could our manned flights not be able to calculate the trajectory needed or the force needed to go into low Earth orbit? We can launch rockets and space shuttles with astronauts to go to the International Space Station. SpaceX can launch payloads to go to the International Space Station, but SpaceX can't launch people into low Earth orbit? Again, just bonkers. I just don't agree with that at all. Just that in itself screams foul. Now I have some other problems with SpaceX, guys. And this is more than just, hey, I don't understand this. So yeah, if you want to listen to this video or listen to part of this video and say, well, you can't say it's false just because you don't understand something. Well, if I'm looking at a subject and I'm looking at many different facets of the subject, many different little small subjects or subcategories in that subject or in that topic, and the things that don't make sense keep compounding, then you should start to ask yourself, okay, what makes sense out of this? Does any of this make sense? The thing that doesn't make sense to me is this right here. SpaceX, this is one of their um, biggest victories, biggest claims to fame, the DSCOVR satellite. That's the Deep Space Climate Observatory. Here is a picture of. So SpaceX launched the DSCOVR, and we received historical footage about a week away from each other. First, we got the first full lit face of the Earth. They said that we've never had this before. And how they explain this is they explain that the DSCOVR is between the sun and the moon and the earth, but it's absolutely directly in between the sun at all times, so that the sun is always fully lighting the earth, and we see this first full lit face. And yes, you can look up full lit face of the earth, and you'll find all this information about the DSCOVR. Okay, so this is the first full lit face. They released the first full. Well, this is not the first full lit face. This is the video of the epic moon transit. But the first full lit face looks just almost exactly like this. Now, about a week later, after the first full lit face, they send this thing, which was the epic view of the moon transit. This is 20 seconds. Let's just watch this. Now, watching that, take from it what you want, okay? Because each people are going to see different things. Now, notice this is NASA. This is NASA, okay? And this is the actual, oh, look, comments are disabled. I wonder why comments are disabled. I believe that comments are disabled because the public is waking up. And the public is waking up because the public is getting more able to see and more able to see technologically deceptive practices of NASA. And so if we look here, what's this green outline here? Well, what's this shadow? The sun's directly behind us, giving us full lit face. How is there a shadow? And even as you know, so some people will say, oh, well, it's composites, and that means that they take pictures and they add the pictures, picture. Okay. The method of this being a composite is more like a time lapse. Okay. Time-lapse imagery or time-lapse compositioning just means you're taking one photo and adding it after the other photo. And so it's a series of slideshows of photos. There would be no residual artifacts from compositioning of time-lapses that would create these false views. Look at these false lightings, the false shadows. Look, there's even a little bit of green here. I have a video on the DSCOVR and this epic transit where we look into this in a little more detail. But from my experience and just from what I believe and from what I can see, look, yellow, shadow, even the moon looks fake. Okay? Well, not to mention that the moon always shows one side of the moon to the earth. So while the earth rotates, the moon is rotating also absolutely perfectly. If you watch this, you can see there is zero rotation with that moon at all. Pay attention to this spot here. That spot stays pretty much the same distance from the edge. Because that spot would be rotating further away from the edge as the moon is rotating to meet with the earth. Because it's the dark side of the moon, fellas. There is no rotation shown. It's like they just put an image and slide an image across the Earth. I even show how there were multiple sunspots on this Earth. You know, I take this Earth and we look at it with brightness and contrast. There's a spot here, and then there's a brightly lit spot here. If this is a full lit face with the sun lighting the entire thing, then how is the left side more lit than the right side? How is the left side more lit with the sunspot in the middle? It does not happen. It is fake. It is false science. And I believe SpaceX proves it. So, the DSCOVR. Let's talk about this. This, again, we have to realize how far away this is. 1 million miles away from the moon. 1 million miles away from the Earth, which is much further than the moon. Okay? So not only is this satellite staying on this perfect orbit where they say it's this gravitationally negative field, so it just stays perfectly in between the sun and the Earth. Now, I don't believe in satellites, especially the geostationary, geosynchronous. Those are two different things. The geostationary and geosynchronous satellites that either do exact one orbit with the Earth or do one rotation with each rotational day, or do not move at all with the rotation of the Earth. Those two things don't make sense to me. But at least they are within the confines of the Earth, and what they explain, quote unquote, I did air quotes there, you can't see it, what they explain with this abstract theory called gravity. And they say, okay, well, it's able to stay directly with the Earth and just in this perfect orbit because of the Earth's gravity and because that's the distance. But here they're telling you this distance between the sun and the Earth, it's absolutely perfect so that we put a satellite there and it stays there. And it's gravitationally negative, so no, it's not the Earth's gravity that's pulling it along. No, it's not the sun's gravity. It's just where we put it is exact. Where we place this satellite is exactly perfect. What a load of bullocks. Okay, let's listen to this lady talk about the DSCOVR. This is from Newsy
NASA
Science.
is gearing up to launch its latest weather satellite, but instead of watching the weather from Earth, Discover's main target will be the wind from the sun. DSCOVR, which stands for Deep Space Climate Observatory, carries new instruments that will use to sample the solar wind and investigate how and why its charged particles keep their heat as they travel through space. That's important for us Earthlings because the solar wind can and does affect the planet. Its activity gives us pretty things like the aurora. More powerful gusts, such as solar flares, run the possibility of damaging our electronics. Back in 1859, the fallout from a strong flare set telegraph offices on fire. These days, we use a lot more than telegraphs, and it's safe to say we don't want the sun setting any of it on fire. The more scientists know about how this wind behaves, the more warnings we'll have, and the better we can protect infrastructures. NASA says DSCOVR will give us as much as an hour of time to shut things down in the event of a big flare. The satellite will orbit from Lagrange Point 1, or L1. It's one of the 5 stable zones where the gravity of the sun and the gravity of the Earth keep satellites and other objects orbiting in perfect sync. Anything occupying those points will stay fixed relative to the planet and the star it orbits. Launch is scheduled for Sunday morning. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is running a live blog of the proceedings, and NASA will be broadcasting the launch on its website. For Newsy, I'm Jasmine Bailey. More than telegraphs, and it's safe to say we don't want the sun setting.
Sorry about that. It's this absolutely perfect location, just where it's gravitationally negative. It's just held in this absolute perfect balance. Okay, so I have a bit of a problem with how these geosynchronous, geostationary, and these satellites that are at the Lagrange points, because they have to be absolutely perfect. And I've been trying to find how do they launch these geostationary and geosynchronous satellites, and a lot of them are launched by hand. The guy throwing it up like a paper airplane. Here we go! And how is that accurate? Just doesn't make sense to me. Okay. So the DSCOVR, not only does the images of it look fake, look absolutely fake, but how did they launch it? Let's read this. So here is a great, this is on the SpaceX website themselves, right? Just before 6:03, Falcon 9 lifted off, carrying the DSCOVR. Falcon 9's Merlin engines burned for 2 minutes and 44 seconds, shutting down as expected just prior to separation of the first and second stages. Shortly thereafter, the second engine ignited to begin the first of 2 burns for approximately 1 minute. Okay. Following the completion of the first burn, so that's after 1 minute. Okay, so it's fired. They burned for 2 minutes and 44 seconds. Okay, shortly thereafter, it began for about a minute. So we're gonna say let's give them a minute. Shortly thereafter, let's give them a minute. So let's just say just short of 3 minutes. Okay, 3 minutes and 44 seconds plus an extra minute, so we'll just say 4 minutes. So now we've got they begin the first burn of the second stage for about another minute. So that's about 5 minutes. Okay. Following the completion of the first burn, it coasted for 22 minutes. Okay, so from about 5 minutes to 27 minutes. Okay, so approximately 30 minutes into the flight, it burns the second stage ignites and puts it into parking orbits. And at 35 minutes, the satellite was successfully deployed. So they started the second burn at 30 minutes and 47 seconds. So almost 31 minutes. About 4 minutes and 13 seconds later, the burn was done and the satellite was deployed. 35 minutes after launch. From launch. Okay. So here's this SpaceX Falcon 9 delivering the Discover. This is the launch.
Vehicle has reached maximum aerodynamic pressure.
First stage prop is still nominal.
Everything go.
Power tunnels remain nominal.
Falcon
Look at that
Discover passing
curve.
through
Look at
max
how
Q.
much it's not even going up straight. It has nothing to do with the curve of the Earth. 35 minutes is all this flew, people.
MVAC is chilling in.
2 minutes into the flight of Falcon
Vehicle
and
remains
Discover.
on a nominal trajectory.
Now, just stop that. Do you believe 35 minutes is enough to get from the Earth to 1 million miles away and launch the satellite? 35 minutes isn't even enough to get to partially way to the moon. This is such a lie.
Altitude 33.9 kilometers, downrange distance 20.9 kilometers, speed.
Altitude 33.9 kilometers. We're 3 minutes in and they've gotten 33.9 kilometers in. 1 minute for every 10 kilometers, but yet they go 30 minutes. So that'd be 300 kilometers. Something not right.
1468 meters per second.
1.68 meters per second. But yet they go 1 million miles in 35 minutes.
Standing by for the first stage engines to shut down. First stage cutoff in about 23 seconds.
Vehicle remains on a nominal trajectory. Altitude 57.9 kilometers, downrange distance 50.0 kilometers, speed 2350 meters per second.
2350 meter per second. 2,000 meters a second.
We have MECO 1.
And we have main engine cutoff.
Separation confirmed.
Now, that's with its 9 rockets. It's reaching 2,000 meters a second. That's 2 kilometers a second. Okay? 2 kilometers a second for 30 minutes. That's only 1,800 seconds for 2 kilometers a second. 1,800 seconds at 2 kilometers a second is 3,600 kilometers. Yet they say they went 1 million
Second
miles.
stage engine. Ignition
And we have stage 2 engine ignition.
has occurred on time.
Stage 2 burns for 1 minute. The first burn of stage 2 burns for 1 minute. Then it coasts for 22 minutes.
The Falcon 9 Merlin vacuum engine producing 92,000 pounds of thrust, continuing to carry Discover to its place in space.
Guys,
The water deluge system.
so, I mean, you can watch that as often as you want. There is no evidence in that video of it going to space. You know, the satellite reaches its orbit 110 days after launch. But this is just absolutely ridiculous. So then the satellite self-propels itself into this orbital positioning 110 days out. How can this satellite, I mean, the distance that this little satellite is going to fly is ridiculous. So, of course, they would need the big rockets to go past the orbit of the Earth and, you know, to negate the gravitational forces of the Earth in order to get the satellite out there. So we just do this quick little launch, throw the satellite up, and then the satellite can fly itself the rest of the distance. Yeah. That makes sense. Just look at this launch. Just look at the launch. Isn't that bullocks? Now, they will tell you that this angle of this launch is because that's the angle that they have to go through to break the atmosphere, to go through the upper atmosphere. But there were many critics. There's quite a large debate who believe that this arc shows that the spacecraft never leave the atmosphere, that they only appear to go in the upper atmosphere and just arc down. Just check out geosynchronous orbits. Check out the other satellites. Check out the temperature of the satellites that were in the geosynchronous orbits. Even the geosynchronous orbits themselves, they were 4,000 degrees Kelvin. This satellite, being a lot closer to the sun, is going to be a lot hotter. How can it dissipate that heat? The metals are not going to withstand that heat. The solar winds, the radiation, but yet we can get images back from 1 million miles away. No problem. Hey, yeah. Oh. That really makes a lot of sense to me. Come on, guys. I mean, really, SpaceX, do you think we're this stupid? Do you think we believe that you brought the DSCOVR into there? Do we believe that SpaceX is able to go into space unmanned, but we can't do it manned with our technology? Huh. Do we really believe that? Here's DSCOVR. It says something in here. It even says that most of the solar storms and solar winds are not dangerous. So, yeah. In addition to the DSCOVR, has additional sensing technology with it. So, here, daily views of Earth. Let's go look at the daily views of this. Oh, yeah, here we go. That's the Earth. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's even showing you the look, this is the Australia, and this is Asia, and this is Africa. Oh, yeah, man. Wow. Oh. It looks like crap to me, guys. And the funny thing is, look, you can choose the days and look at the dates of this. How do we have this technology to transmit this information a million miles away? Really? How could we send near live television signals from the moon to the Earth with like a 1 minute, 2 minute delay through the Van Allen belt, which is high radiation? And look, we don't see any satellites. We don't see the International Space Station. We don't see anything else on this. And this is the daily views. No, this is the scrubbed and washed CGI views. That's what this is. There's just more information here about the DSCOVR and stuff, and it just does not make sense. I would love to hear what you guys think about SpaceX. This is just a little bit information about their last failure in June 2015. And they were saying how it was not going to cause a lot of damage to the International Space Station. And yeah, see, they have supplies with contingencies in mind. Really. Here's the Falcon 9s, the last Falcon 9s and the Heavy Falcon launches, 2010. Here we go. National Commercial Resupply Services. That's the contract that SpaceX has to resupply the International Space Station. And they even have a National Commercial Resupply Services 2, which, takes over after 2017 and further. So here's all the future launches. I call hoax. I call crud. I call crap. I call fake. I call deception. I call lies. I don't think that there's any way that the rocket that they had flew for 35 minutes, launched the satellite, and the satellite flew the rest of the distance to this direct point in between, this absolutely critical little point, precise little point. Now, how would the satellite measure that? GPS? Is it going to measure, use a laser to measure the distance from the Earth to the sun? Oh, hey, we're here. We're on our map. We got GPS. Crap. For something that's as so critical as the placement of this, how did they do it? There would be no way to tell the positioning because of all the radiation. The radiation would cause discrepancies in the instrumentations. There would be There's no way this works. Hey guys, really like to thank you for sticking with me and listening to me talk about my problems with the SpaceX and DSCOVR. I would love to hear what you think about it. Was I making some incorrect assumptions? Are there some things that you believe it doesn't add up also? Do you think we have satellites? Do you think this epic moon transit is real? Do you think that CGI? I look at it from a graphics background, and I say CGI, but I'm wondering if it's all the comments are disabled. I'm wondering if it's gotten so obvious that the normal public, that people who may not be technologically savvy, can sit here and say, well, that just doesn't look right. And I think that's where we are getting to. We are very discerning people. We have very precise vision, and we're able to see something that doesn't make sense. So please comment below. Let me know if you think this is a fake, if you think it's real. If I'm questioning for NASA for no reason, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Thanks again. Love you all. Appreciate you. And I hope we have a good next year, 2016. Take care. It's December 27th. William Brower. I'm out. Research for yourself. Find your own truth.